Yeah, so you got.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a Ukrainian talk show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and today I have great guests for last several months, if not years already. Dr. Jonathan Lockwood, welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Thank you, Sasha. Glad to be here.
And we will have also assistance of Pod TV producer Mark Lee. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Where are you, Mark?
Mark.
It's your cue.
Okay, maybe he will join
Maybe
us
later.
Okay, listen. So today is our last show before Christmas, and unfortunately, the peace is not closer to us today as it was a year ago, as it was around 2 years ago when the all started on February 24th. Sorry, 2024. No, 2022. Maybe by 2024, we'll have some other developments. Depends on your beliefs, what it could be. Either it could be some kind of a peace agreement, or it could be victory of Ukraine. We'll see to that. Right now, the situation is very interesting. If you take a real situation on the front line as it's today versus a year ago, it's much more favorable to Ukraine than it was a year ago, because Ukraine got back almost half of the territory that was overrun by Russia. It's got a lot of sophisticated weapons delivered during the year. And yet, if you look at the social media, countless authors, including some very influential ones, you see a different picture. You see that Ukraine is doomed, that the West abandoned Ukraine, that Russia is getting stronger and stronger day by day, and Ukraine must rethink all its strategy, and there is a lot of corruption. And if you will look at this magazine, Business Insider, there is a horrible article about mostly Yermak, and why he must go before anything positive will happen to Ukraine. So on one hand, the situation is much better than a year ago. On the other hand, situation is much worse than it was a year ago. Jonathan, what's happening? Is it the new world?
Sasha, if you looked back at World War II, at the things that were being said in the press during World War II, and if you were actually going through, newsreels and other things, there were all sorts of propaganda pieces that were, being very pessimistic, and you cannot take them. You cannot take them. You have to take them all with a grain of salt. Looking back at it in retrospect. Right now, the situation is that despite the statements of so-called experts in the West saying that Ukraine is doomed, Ukraine has already taken away control of the Black Sea, mostly away from the Russian fleet. I mean, it is all but destroyed. And now you have the situation, as I have pointed out numerous times before, the operational and reinforcement and logistics link between Russia and Crimea is very vulnerable and tenuous, and that all it really takes is one decisive effort, one decisive blow to sever that link, and Crimea essentially drops off into Ukrainian possession, and which would in turn enable Ukraine to shift its forces to more vigorously oppose any incursions in eastern Ukraine by Russia. And Russia has not been very successful at all in its offensive efforts in eastern Ukraine. They are taking, essentially staggering casualties. And you have a continuing influx of weapons of various types from other NATO members coming in, and other developments taking place, for example, between the U.S. and Finland, where the U.S. is agreeing to looking to station potentially U.S. military forces in Finland, as well as various other weapon systems, which would expose a great vulnerable spot in Russia, along Russia's frontier. And there are simply too many countervailing factors in Ukraine's favor for anyone in the West to say, despite the temporarily tenuous nature of U.S. funding support, I have a feeling in the true spirit of American politics that is going to be resolved in a compromise within the next few coming months. And so, but my contention has always been is that all it really takes is for Ukraine to choose its moment, to inflict one decisive operational defeat upon Russian forces. And that point is the logistical and reinforcement link between Russia and Crimea. Once that is severed, Crimea will go back under control of Ukraine. That represents a decisive operational defeat for Russian forces. Even the NATO Secretary General was publicly stated just recently that Russia has permanently lost Ukraine. It will never take Ukraine. And increasing number of NATO members are recognizing that their true long-term interest lies in the sovereignty and independence of Ukraine, and it's becoming a strong member of both the European Union and of NATO. So that is becoming the strategic balance, contrary to naysayers in the West, is shifting in favor of Ukraine. So my advice is just take heart from oddly from what happened, as I mentioned before, nearly 80 years ago in the Ardennes, when Germany achieved operational surprise in its Ardennes offensive, when nobody expected the Germans to be capable of anything in December 1944. They were confident that the war would be, well, they were correct in the longer term, that the victory was inevitable for the Allies. What they did not realize was that Germany was still capable of one last desperate counteroffensive. In a sense here, just because people are decrying the capability of Ukraine to drive the Russians back, they are speaking too soon, in my opinion, and that it is entirely possible, indeed likely, that Ukraine will be able to achieve operational surprise of sorts over the coming next few months. And certainly the Russians are not going to be able to achieve any decisive results within the next few months, but the initiative still lies very much with Ukraine. What do you think, Sasha?
No, what I think is that I think Russia is posturing that they're trying to capitalize on the fact that the Western help is being delayed, as we know. So they're posturing that, well, look at this. Ukraine is really exposed. It has no more help from the West, so now we can overrun it. But they forgot in this position of war where it is now, Russia doesn't have any advantages. They cannot make any substantial attack. Well, they are doing attacks, but unsuccessful. I'm talking about successful attacks. There are none. and little villages like Avdiivka, like few others, they are attacking now for several months. All this nonsense that they're going to take all the Baltic states and Poland, and then they will go to attack Germany and all the rest of Europe in near future. Look at this. This is all nice dreams. When you look at reality, it's entirely different. Mark, what do you think?
I'm hearing what you're saying. Definitely looks like this war has been going on for a while and it's going to continue going on in all in that space. I don't know if you heard me earlier, but in the news report before we got to the whole Christmas story and all along those lines, there's been this talk of us doing sanctions. I know we talked about it earlier, but sanctions against, I guess, some businesses that are doing business with Russia in order to get them to, I guess, lose some of these weapons and all in that space. So, Jonathan, you're in this space of leadership and definitely have been involved in government activities and everything. Do these sanctions ever work? Because I was hearing that they literally were going to try to find a way to go against businesses that are involved with Russia, and I guess we're supposed to think that this is going to work. But you're more knowledgeable than I am, so just wondering your thoughts around
Not
that.
that much more knowledgeable in this case, but in sanctions, unless they are unless sanctions are backed up convincingly by
Right.
corresponding military power and the ability to enforce, sanctions do not work in a vacuum. They can be bypassed. But if you apply sanctions, you must be prepared to buttress sanctions with a appropriate application of military power and other elements of national power. That you simply declaring that you're going to declare economic sanctions is not in itself a sufficient means for deterring aggression by another country.
But Tom Jonathan, don't you think that the whole institution of sanctions is becoming very ineffective simply because of the fact, for how many years Iran is under sanctions of all kinds, and the life is really normal. It could have been better if there wouldn't be sanctions. I see the wisdom of that as well. But whether they're working or not, in case of Iran, I don't think
Again,
all of them.
sanctions by themselves are not effective unless, as I repeat again, unless they are buttressed by and complemented by appropriate use of other forms of power.
But Jonathan, in that same standpoint and everything, one of the things that has happened, or at least is being said that was going to happen, is that apparently, and I know the Russians are not too happy about this, but both U.S. and Europe have grabbed some Russian assets, and apparently they're saying, "Hey, we've got these assets, and we'll
And
hand the
assuming
assets
that they
over
can,
to
assuming that they,
Ukraine and
yeah,
everything." So
and if
some of
they
these
overcome
assets are
those,
military assets.
yeah, and if they overcome the legal objections and they decide to, with a unified display of political will, transfer those assets to Ukraine, that helps Ukraine. That helps Ukraine in a significant way, and it shows Russia that there is a price, maybe not exorbitant, but it will be a price that they have to pay, is the loss of their assets in the support of their perceived principal opponent at this point. So it's a matter of patience and persistence.
But in that same persistence and patience, because I had gotten to this news story that we didn't get to in the news and everything because of the whole Santa conversation and everything. But in that same standpoint, there is a major organization that a lot of people love getting their snacks from and all in that space. And apparently they're Jewish, and that is Ben and Jerry's. But people are upset that Ben and Jerry's is not wanting to sell their ice cream in Israeli settlements because of that, and they are being boycotted. I think here in North Carolina, they're actually uh, so some of the pension assets are being sold off because of Ben and Jerry's stance and everything. So I just wondering how much should corporations, whether it's
I don't think ice cream is going to cause the collapse of the. It's going to cause the collapse of Israel. I'm sorry, they're tougher than that.
agreed.
Gee.
Jonathan, I would like to know your opinion on something else. I was contacted by one person with the idea that if you know the Torah, which is a part of the Bible, which insists that person insists that there are verses that the Jews have to kill all other non-Jews, and therefore that justifies Hitler's action against Jews because he was associated in Jews probably in his younger years when he was trying to sell his paintings to Jewish galleries, and he was not overly successful at that. And that actually put his mind of eliminating Jews so they will not kill non-Jews. So essentially, it was his defensive effort. What do you think about this theory?
Oh, thank you for that hand grenade. But if you look at those same verses in the Bible, in the Torah, when God is commanding the Jewish nation, the Jewish people, to totally eliminate certain tribes, that is because that theologically all these competing tribes were worshipers of other gods other than Yahweh. And so this is and in accordance with the first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me. I'm a jealous God. God was demanding that in order for the people, the nation, the Jews that he had selected, that in order for them to survive, that their competition for the lands of Canaan, the promised land, and so forth, they must be eliminated. They cannot coexist. So,
yeah, either you eliminate the other tribe or the other tribe will
eliminate. So it's various other nations, such as the Hittites. The Hittites no longer exist, and certain other nations that were in competition that did not want that did not want the nation of Israel to exist either. That is simply Israel, in effect, was ordered to impose a Carthaginian peace upon the ones that were competing with it for survival. And in any case, that does not justify, it does not justify the claims of other nations that Israel should not exist. Israel established its right to exist a long time ago.
And what about those theories that Hitler was trying to protect Germans and others from the Jews, and therefore he went on killing 6 million?
A very specious claim, to be sure. And remember Eisenhower, when the American troops liberated the death camps near the end of World War II, and Eisenhower ordered that pictures and evidence be gathered and lots of pictures be taken, because he said someday some pardon my language, some bastards are going to claim that this never happened.
Yeah.
Quick question. I know it's not a religious show, but it's kind of confused me. One thing, well, I was going to clarify, because I think that there are still some offsprings of the Hittites that are still around, because I actually know some folks that claim to be part of that lineage. So,
well, if you find a Hittite descendant around there who's willing to make a case, well, trot them out there. Let's see what happens. I think it'd be interesting. It'll be amusing after all.
Hittite Empire, and so there's some folks out there, even in Turkey, that claim to be descended from the Hittites. But like I said, there's probably a select and very small community and everything. But one of the things that, like I said, I know it's not a religious show per se, because it's more about Ukraine, Russia, and China. But and Lockhart, you are involved in this lane of understanding religious, but more than I do, and everything. But what confuses me sometimes is when people say, only worship one God. I got that. There's only one God. There should only be one God, no matter what that God's name is. And that's a whole other conversation, whether you want to call him Yahweh or God or a number of other names that he goes by. But where it gets confusing is when people have this notion of their way or the highway with the prophets, and that is where I think it always throws me off. But I don't know your thoughts around that, because you have some people that'll be like, you got to go Jesus or nobody else, or you got to go Muhammad or nobody else, and I don't know that that's necessarily what the Bible says.
I will simply point out what the Christian theologian C.S. Lewis said about this. His statement was, if Christianity is false, then it is of no importance. If Christianity is true, then it is of infinite importance. The one thing that Christianity can never be is of only moderate importance. And basically, C.S. Lewis is saying if you are confronted with a person of Jesus Christ, either Jesus Christ means everything to you or he means nothing at all to you. He never intended to give us a third path and say, oh, well, you can just say that Jesus was a good man, but I don't agree with his claim to be God, part of the triune Godhead. He never intended to give you that choice. It's all or nothing. With Christians, that's the way it is. And from the standpoint of Christians, evangelical Christians, the Jews are vitally important because Christianity recognizes the Jews as God's chosen people. They were the initial people through which God intended to bring salvation into the world at Christmas time. They were the instrument. And therefore, every good Bible-believing evangelical Christian ought to be, at least from a theological standpoint, wholly in favor of the existence of Israel. That is the basis, essentially, which morphed into political support for Israel on the part of the United States, because the United States is still, to a significant degree, influenced by Christian beliefs, not wholly, not to the degree it has been in decades past. There's more contention now, but still, the United States, because of its very large Jewish population, and other elements of evangelical Christianity, is still very much in favor of the existence of the Jewish state.
Mhm.
But then let me ask you this question, Jonathan. It's well known, according to Gospels, that Jesus was born in the city of Bethlehem. So here's a Jew born in a Jewish city some 2,000 plus years ago. What's happened today in Bethlehem? There are no Jews, there are no Christians. It's a total Arab or Palestinian, so you might call it city. And if you want to have, say, a trip to Bethlehem to see these historical places, you'll face a lot of difficulties to do so. And um, it's quite risky
Yeah.
enterprise.
And even so, yeah, the Israel established through several wars in the 20th century, they established and justified their right to exist. Pure and simple. They had to defend it by force of arms, but they did it.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, so much about Jesus and Bethlehem and all these other issues.
Really?
Which,
Let's get back to Ukraine, shall we? Something simple?
yeah, that's much simpler, at least.
Hey,
For sure. So, if talking about Ukrainian church, it's now completely separated from Russian church. They have absolutely nothing to do in common. The Ukrainian church is, first of all, the Ukrainians have quite substantial Catholic church and quite substantial people who believe in Catholic ritual, and there are also the Orthodox Church, which is predominantly considered to be a Russian Orthodox Church, although all that originated in Greece, in Byzantium, all that stuff. But today, in my opinion, it's definitely not a religious war between Ukraine and Russia by far.
no.
And even between Israel and Gaza, it's not religious war either.
Both are wars for survival.
It's a war for survival in case of Israel. Israel is fighting to survive. Not only they want to eliminate the threat, which is Hamas, to make sure that the future generations of Israel will not be attacked by Hamas, people or their followers. And yeah, Mark.
Sorry, really quickly, because you said something that I was confused about, so I just wanted to double check it and correct me if I'm wrong. But isn't Bethlehem? I know that it is considered a Palestinian city, but isn't it currently in Israel-occupied West Bank? So wouldn't it technically be an Israeli city right now? Because that's what I'm reading is that it's a Israeli-occupied West Bank is where Bethlehem is right now. So that would make it. And they were actually talking about how they are muting their celebrations, but they are having celebrations of Christmas because local pastors are expecting to have a holy night there, even though they might not be doing as much as they might be doing in the past because of the current wars that are going on in that area. But they did say that they are planning to do a celebration across the area as part of the Christmas celebration and everything. So I was,
Mark, with all due respect,
oh,
Wikipedia is saying I 4 years ago was in Israel with my wife. We have friends there who live in the city of the Rishon LeZion. It's not too far from Tel Aviv. And we traveled quite a lot, and I expressed an interest to visit Bethlehem. And they looked at me and says, "You must be crazy. What are you talking about? It's so dangerous. Don't even think about it." Of course, we didn't visit the city of Bethlehem, although maybe you're right. Maybe it is indeed occupied by Israel, but it's so dangerous to go there. So give or take. Jonathan, what do you think?
Well, I was going to reserve my thoughts on that until the end of our show.
Oh, excellent.
Yes, where I have that poem by 3 verses of a poem by Longfellow. I heard the bells on Christmas Day. That I would like that would be for inspiring to our listeners. But
Mhm.
you let me know when you want me to recite that, and I will do that. But in the meantime, the cities which constitute what Christians regard as the Holy Land, and which many Jews regard as the Holy Land, are very much in contention. And so the nation state of Israel, to many evangelical Christians, represents the fulfillment of one of the prophecies of the end times. Heralding the second coming of Christ, which to many evangelical Christians is decisively important. So whether you believe that or not, it is a significant belief to many Christians. So there is a lot to be fought over here. Oh, this is ugly.
I mean,
So, Mark, we can't properly to answer your question. And if you'll be in Israel, try to visit Bethlehem to find yourself what it's all about.
well, I
Okay.
mean,
Keep your
I've
head
got friends
down.
that have visited that area. I have not had the pleasure of going there, but I've had people that have gone there for a variety of reasons. Because even to Jonathan's point, whether you are Jewish, whether you are Christian, or whether you are Muslim, because it is also a lot of the holy lands are lands that are considered very holy to those that want to practice going on forget this, I think it's the journey to Mecca or something along those lines that are part of the Muslim culture, whether you're of American Muslim or Sunni or Shiite. So definitely that whole land is definitely got a lot of history and a lot of Greek people that go visit it on a regular basis. Because I want to say that while we're in the middle of celebrating Christianity and definitely what is going on with Christmas, and while the Jewish community is celebrating Hanukkah, I want to say that Ramadan is around this same time or around the similar time and all along those lines. So yeah, a lot of people are traveling to that area, or trying to travel to that area, but definitely it is difficult to do when there's a major conflict going on.
Hmm. Okay. Well, in this case, we will talk more about Ukrainian situation our next show on Tuesday. Hopefully, Ivan will be able to join us as well. And to finish today's program, I would like to feature our dear contributor, Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Please,
Yes.
Jonathan.
The 3 verses that I'm about to recite to you are from a poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow,
Mhm.
written during the American Civil War. I heard the bells on Christmas Day. And the 3 verses that I'm selected are as follows. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and mild and sweet the words repeat of peace on earth, goodwill toward men. Then in despair I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill toward men. Then rang the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill toward men. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Bravo, Jonathan. Merry Christmas to everybody. And we'll see you on Tuesday, same place, same time. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye bye.
Well, I find the right video and get us on out of here. Here we go.